All right, so we proceed with the talks. This time we have Marko. He's going to talk about fixing Lorem Ipsum with content prototyping. We are really looking forward to this. And I give him the word.
All right, so can you hear me? Yeah, you can. I will keep fighting with this cable for the next 45 minutes, so now you know. Anyway, this is pretty much very international conference. We have people from all over the world. I think also a couple of visitors from outside of this region, right? Am I right? Raise your hand if you're not from Germany or Switzerland or... Okay, 3, 4, all right, 7, 8 people. So I was thinking about adding my country's crest here. And what's always amazing about Croatian crest is that people often think that this is because we always have picnics, like all day. And it's not the case at all. This just represents the 25 counties that we have in Croatia, similar to cantons in Switzerland. So basically, I don't know which color is for which part, but we have like this northern part, which is one color, and another color is for the coast. I also have a Twitter account, of course. So if you have any question or something comes to your mind, because this is a very difficult topic, and I hope you will disagree with me, so that means that I made my job today, just reply me, and I will for sure answer. On my Twitter bio, it says that I'm editor at Smash Magazine. That's a fresh thing, like for the last couple of months. I also co-authored this book here. Is there anyone who doesn't have it? All right, you're lying. Be very careful during the talk because I might ask you a question afterwards. Other than running around the conferences, I founded and I'm a UX director for Creative Nights back home. And that means that we usually test a lot of versions of every little detail on the website. And this is actually what we lately do, like optimize checkout processes for companies, etc. Very sensitive stuff. Our client lists in Croatia particularly include some of the top websites, like the most visited websites, and this was the result of so this word here is visits. We increased the visits for the top classifieds website in Croatia by 20% after the redesign, which was in 2013. So we basically are asked to lower the phone calls to the support center, to improve customer acquisition, and to also earn money for our clients. Collectively, all our clients, all the websites that we've been working on in Croatia receive 3 million monthly visits, which is not a big deal per se, but Croatia has like 4.5 million people, so we better be careful what we are doing because theoretically more than half of the country in middle European zone is depending on our work. So that can be scary sometimes. By the way, Croatia, my country, my home country, is a great country for your next vacation. Here's the view from the apartment that we rented this summer. Obviously, kids are still in bed. And since I think they're actually watching this talk at home, can you please just turn out to the camera and give a big wave to them? All right. So this picture was taken on the very last day, just before we left the beach, and you can see which guy was the less happy about that. That one on the top right who has to go to school now. Anyway, the vacation was really great. We had like 3 weeks, which was, we managed to pull that much this year for the first time ever. But still, design issues follow me all the time. This should be bakery, not bakery. And in this particular case, it's probably not something done out of hate for this project, but just accidental mistake. And probably nobody died because they went left to bakery, whatever that means. But this bottle of the very famous brand, do you know which brand is this? You know, of course. So the most important thing on this label is shake well before use. And instead of putting that on the cap, which you always remove before you want to, oil your kids, they say like invisible and non-greasy, like you care if it's greasy on the beach, right? So it's very important to provide good content, content that's useful, content that's meaningful, warnings that you can actually see that interrupt the user flow and warn them about what's happening next, instead of just using marketing copy, which is obviously this. They wanted me to buy this bottle of sunscreen, and then after that, I don't care. It's here. It's very important. So this is basically what are we going to talk about today. So I'm going to rant about the process a little, so let's just change it right away. The traditional process is not working because we always design based on assumptions instead of real content. Then I will try to give you some tips how to gather the content before asking the client for the content. Then how to create a prototype for them to start actually giving you content and create content for the users. And finally, what to do when you actually have content. I think some quite fancy ideas. So, the scenario. You land a contract, and then you're supposed to start designing and build a website, and then you ask the client, well, we could get a better sense of the project if you can send us some content. And then by the end of the next week, you get a PDF of the leaflet from the last year's trade show that says, like, we are the industry leaders. Or we are committed to excellence. Of course you are. And finally, our customers are our greatest value. Put that on the website, right? That's our content. Of course, and the logo. Yeah, and that's like 3 months before the deadline. And you think like, well, if they are going to send like some content every week, we can actually make it. But then 1 week before the launch, right? They're doing the double shifts, and they email you at 2 a.m. asking how to log into the CMS. And then you support them like all night long and try to fix the typos and be at their disposal. And then what happens 3 days before? Some very important pages that you anticipated that would be the most useful for the novice users that should actually start trusting the company just vanish, right? The thing is, when we know nothing about the content, we cannot design it properly. So the only thing that we can pull out is some generic design. So you just use the typeface that's very popular nowadays, some layout that's very popular nowadays. And this is basically how designers who use free or premium WordPress themes and then adjust them, actually I can see a point there, because no use to design something from scratch if it's going to be generic anyway. So we waste time reshuffling the main navigation, and the more people in the company there are who are responsible for different sections on the website, the more meetings you have to attend, and just put down the fire, and after you think that you actually agreed on the main navigation, somebody comes from some obscure department and requests janitor or somebody. I need to have my link there. And Dave Rupert they represented that on the at the SmashConf in Oxford earlier this year. And do you know Dave Rupert? How many people know Pavel? And 1 or 2 people, really? Amazing, 3 people. Okay, so he's the front-end developer for the new responsive Microsoft.com website. Anybody heard about Microsoft? Yeah, kind of fierce. Anyway, he's very right. Most of the time we just run in the circles about like logotype and colors and run corner shadows, etc. Never ever touching the question of content. And most of the time, designers are asked to design something beforehand because you wouldn't believe it. Clients also suffer from the fear of the blank canvas. So it's easier for them to pay you to do something first and then to criticize you, right? You can tweet this. It's completely natural. I mean, we have it, why wouldn't they have it? And they're not professional creators, right? So the problem is when they face the task of writing the content, they're like completely freezed, and it's actually our job to help them overcome it by providing some inputs, creating templates, and so on and so forth. Because they don't produce the content, and they have this big fear, and they're frozen until even after the launch. We have the same broken content, which is straightforward. Our job to create a generic website, and then they kind of put the content in. Gone. So, what are the main pain points, running projects like this? Users cannot find the information that they need because the information doesn't exist. They don't trust the company. Our interface is messed up because it's very generic, and in most cases it's broken after they start actually eventually putting content in. So you have these long sidebars with these tall articles, or extremely long articles with just 2 links in the sidebar. So it's not actually adjusted at all to the content that it represents. And most of all, the biggest pain point in the project is that the client is not happy because the website is not earning any money. So let's change that. Let's try to embrace another kind of process. The first thing you do when you know or think that you may land a contract is just set up Google Alert for this client. So for whatever keywords they might, that might be important to them, just set up Google Alert and steal whatever it comes up, right? And put it in an Excel sheet or just TXT file, whatever, and use that. And later on, if you use that as your initial content, they will certainly raise red flags if something is inappropriate. And you should say to them, like, well, this is just a mock-up. It's okay, and if it doesn't work, we'll figure something out. Another thing is brochures, any print materials, whatever. It's straightforward, right? But you would be surprised what can be found when you search into Google Images. So all the GIFs, JPEGs, screenshots, whatever, things like that. Just collect that and put into some scrap folder. Find the FAQ. If they don't have it, create one, put it on Google Docs, share with them, and enter all the questions that you have about the company. So you can do that even before you actually have a first contact with the company. Say they sent you an RFP, right? And you can instantly ask questions about the company and put them in the FAQ. That way you actually have already some material when you're sending your proposal. And then actually they know that you're interested in them, and you can sell your UX expertise. When you talk to them, ask them about every little detail about in the company. So why do you, I don't know, why is the tire pressure on your trucks like, I don't know, 20 bars, whatever? Why? Because when you ask why, and if you are persistent about that, this is how kids learn. And with kids, you only can explain things if you use simple terms. So you just have to like disassemble whatever there is, right? And just have like simple answers. When you have simple answers, use that on the website, because new customers are basically kids who know nothing about the company, right? And the products. Then ask your friends, relatives, whoever is the cheapest of your associates to see, the website or the industry or whatever, and let them ask a question about the company or about the products. Whatever they come, with, like, I don't understand what this is for. So that's your great question for your draft FAQ. And then you will have to, ask your client, well, can you please explain to this completely layperson what it's all about? And they will have to actually put an effort into it. And of course, still the competition content. This one's actually manipulation, but it works if you explain, like, well, I'm not stupid, I don't know that's competition content, but I thought this is very interesting and we can maybe create something better along these lines. And usually clients actually make better content if they start with the competition content, because they can see the flaws in the competition content, they can see some advantages that they can use, etc., so the content becomes really much better. Of course, bring your camera. It's ridiculous how people don't do that, right? Everybody has like an iPhone or a friend who's a photographer, and you can just ask them and say to your client, well, this is our official photographer, right? And just send them around the office or the factory or whatever, and let them find like machines, fleet with big display logos on the cars, people working something, so they don't have to kind of break the privacy rules. You don't have to take pictures of employees, but somebody working on something, piles of paper, cables, computers, whatever you would usually use as a stock buy from the stock. But this way you will have your own like genuine photography that's actually resembling the stock photography, but will be authentic for the client. And if the pictures are looking too bland, you just do whatever else people do, just apply high contrast filter from Instagram, and there you have it, right? It will look good, clients will be like, wow, this is artistic. So now that we have all this, random content pulled together, what do? You can install WordPress, Easy Publish, Drupal, or whatever you're using for the project. If you plan to use a particular CMS, just use that, unstyle it, so remove all the, all CSS, everything, and just leave it like that. Put it on the server and enter all the pages that popped up during your search, and whatever you thought that would be interesting for the customers, and create a navigation tree. And this way, when you share it with the client, they will see that there's a lot of pages that have to be taken care of. Because once you design the main navigation bar with drop-downs, they will never see the full category tree all at once, right? So they might think like, well, we have 7 sections, that's not a lot of content. But then if each section has like 10 subsections, that's like 70, and it makes a big difference. What you also get when you have unstyled website is that they don't focus on design, because there is no design, and then they focus on interaction and information architecture, user flow, how to get to some information, etc., etc. Once you do, create user accounts, so ask them who will be responsible, who will be the editor for the website, and then you assign the editor role to that person, and to all the others, like, I don't know, whoever will be entering the content, just create regular author roles, and set up everything and send them the login details, and then just ask them to start, filling in the blanks. The important thing is that clients are not professionals in web designing, in writing content, in anything that we do. They don't know how to do it. What they do know is their business, their company, their what works for them. They know that part of the stuff. So it's our responsibility to provide whatever, to create the environment for the content to actually happen. There is one big difference between permanent and temporary content. It's very important to explain that to the customers, to your clients, because permanent content is usually the core content that has real value. So these are like product descriptions, etc. This is the content that explains the company, and it's very important for the new visitors to gain trust early on, so that they want to make business with you. And the other kind of content is temporary updates and announcements, which is basically marketing copy that attracts the customers that already know everything about the company. So you have like promotion, discounts, whatever there is. So permanent content, enter everything that you already have. So you can kind of send to the client, well, we have this 10 folders. Can you take care of 5, and we'll take care of another 5? Split the workload. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect at all, and you just keep telling that to the client. Just enter the content. I don't know the facts. I cannot learn your business that you're running like for the last 10 years. I can make an effort, but I cannot know everything about it. The next thing is create content templates, and this is actually the real beef. That's why I have this expand plus. So super important principle is for every page, and this is very important. So for every page, create 3 levels of expertise. So you can create a little content for beginners, so somebody who knows nothing about the company or about the product. The next level is for intermediate users, and the third level is for experts. And then you kind of limit the number of characters or words or sentences, because novice users should just get the general idea about the content. And experts can have like everything in, because they already have the capacity and the knowledge from before to actually take everything in. So if you use this kind of page for a novice user that has only this capacity to comprehend what's on that page, you'll just lose them, because they will feel overwhelmed and they will abandon the website and not earn any money to your client. Another thing with abstractions, with these different kinds of content, is that every page needs 2 levels of abstraction. One is metadata. So in Croatian, this says general VAT in Republic of Croatia is 25%, right? So the user actually doesn't have to go to the website to know what's that data, because this says tax to added value, which is VAT acronym, right? So this is one level of abstraction. You can also use it not only for the SEO purposes, but also for so for instance, if you have like a list of links on the homepage and you don't want them to take too much space, you just use this kind of small 1-sentence explanations. Saves a lot of bandwidth on the website. Another level of abstraction, this is the same page. And you can see how we actually use the same content for the intro text. Actually, this was not our idea. This is what gov.uk uses all the time. So they kind of abstract the most important information and present it, center top on the page. So, but this is a good example about how you can actually, talk blah blah blah. VAT is this and that, European this and that. Nobody cares except maybe accountants or people, advanced users, right? Okay, next template that we can build is beginner's guides. What we usually do is, if you have like complicated process, So for instance, if you want to establish a company, you have to go to one office, then another office, then you have to go to Social Security and this and that, tax numbers, etc. So for somebody who's beginner in business, they would feel overwhelmed if you just present them with like 40 pages manual, right? But if you can break it down to small steps and ask your client to describe each step like in 1 or 2 sentences with a link to more content, beginners will feel much more appreciative, to that process, and they will actually know, okay, these are like 5 major steps, major groups, but for each, I don't know. After step 1, you can say like, well, here's the map to that institution, and you should go to window number 8, and then first floor, whatever. But for the first encounter with some content, it's always good to have like really concise list of steps. Purchasing process, it's ridiculous how many companies don't have that. So I think the main question that you have when you're, so say you have like general doctor, right? And in Croatia we have like free medical care, but sometimes you want to go to a private practice. And once we made this transition, like some 20 years ago, many people didn't know how to actually, how do you go to private practice? How much does it cost? Do you have to call, email, whatever? And it's very important to provide these simple steps for the users to actually kind of anticipate what's going to happen, so they can actually prepare the answers when they're asked something particular. In our experience, we always just use normal numbered list. So for instance, here's the live site. How do they quote you for the service of SEO marketing, right? So you send a proposal, that's this step, and then we contact you, etc., etc. So when the prospect customer comes and if they have an idea, well, I will send an email, then they will send it back. That's not the whole project, right? So there's like 8 serious steps before we actually begin doing something. The next thing is glossary. That's basically, finding keywords that are specific to this client, to this industry, and just creating glossary. That means that you can have like dedicated page for each term that's specific for that industry, which is A, good for SEO by itself, right? And B, you can, on this page with specific term, you can list all related articles that use that term. And also later on, whenever a new article is published, the editor can link to this page, thus more improving the SEO. And this is so easy to create. Just enlist typical keywords and explain them like in one paragraph. So I don't know, VAT is value added tax, right? That's it, that's the entry. Company history, it's always very boring. Like, it's either too long and too boring, or it's too generic because people don't like to write about themselves. They find it difficult. We all do. So you can create a timeline and just enter some facts. So you can ask them like, when did you found the company, right? What was the first, I don't know, when did you buy your first truck? Or when did you employ your first assistant? Or what was the year when you grew to 10 people? Or whatever, You just ask them that kind of questions, and then you put it in some boxes here, and you can have like a really nice timeline. And what we often do, especially with technology companies nowadays, because technology itself has some recent history, unlike accounting, for instance, you can use like the top portion for the company history, and use some major events like, for instance, CSS2 specification that year, right? HTML5 specification that year, jQuery that year, and then you enlist your projects that you did, and so you can utilize the timeline to actually express how experienced you are, especially if you have something like, to stick with the topic of CSS, for instance, if you had like responsive web design 2010, right? And your like 3 or 4 projects are like 2010, 11, 12, right? All responsive web design, that tells to your potential customer that you're actually following the trends, right? Or if there's something very experimental, like experimental CSS3, and you already done something with CSS3 at the very same moment, then you actually can sell yourself as something that who's very up to date with the technology, and it's much more convenient and believable to your prospects. Employees profiles, always a hard thing to get. You can create custom templates. So say this is a profile page, right? And you can create in your CMS like 3 separate fields, and each field is for another purpose. You limit each field to 3 sentences, asking them to first describe what they do in the company, or better yet, how they help their customers. So how do you help your customers? Just a straightforward question. They have 3 sentences to describe it. The next field is what's your professional background and education. So no bullet points, no CV, no I have driver's license and such things. Just the breakdown of your expertise. And the third field is always good to kind of have this human touch on your business profile, is to enlist your hobbies. So 3 sentences each, 3 fields, 3 sentences each. The good thing about this is that you kind of normalize employees' profiles. So for instance, if there's somebody who has like a rich career, they will have the same content as somebody who has a little less. So you don't embarrass the person who has nothing to write about, and you also don't kind of promote somebody who just has a lot of things on paper, right? Because the most important thing with company is always like teamwork. You hear that all the time, right? So teamwork, we all work together. So this way you kind of help them to achieve that image for themselves. Now we are out. High resolution photos, just let them upload whatever, because it's much easier to crop and downsize big images later on than having like small, GIFs or something from feature phone on the website. It's impossible to reupload everything because you will have like a total mess. So high resolution photos only. When I say limit the number of words and characters, don't do that in CMS because it's too expensive. Excuse me. It's too expensive to do it while you're still not decided about the design and the full feature set, while you're still prototyping. Just use some trimming classes or simple functions on the output. So you just cut the string like after whatever number of characters. Don't bother too much about semantic cutting and width and orphan words. Don't care about that. So just use these simple hacks on template side to actually limit the number of characters. So let them enter 2 pages of content, but limit it to 200 characters, and that's it. And later on, it's much easier to increase the the limit in the template than to redesign the field that says like you have 3 characters left. That's very expensive, of course. Deadline. It's self-explanatory, but if you don't give it to them, they will probably miss to deliver the content because their day-to-day tasks are usually prevailing. To give you a rough estimate about what should be the deadline, usually people who work in the company on other tasks, assignments, have like 10 to 15% of their time can dedicate. So I'd say, and that's our kind of estimate, people can actually afford like one afternoon, maybe one full day a week to. This is what usually their supervisors allow them to, to spend on the website. Temporary content, so news announcements, marketing articles, promotional articles. Their temporary content tracks existing customers. Publishing schedule. So why not pretending that we already have a website? So ask for their wishes and then create a timeline and let them stick to the timeline and publish articles actually the way they were supposed to publish it when the website goes live. Recurrent seasonal activities. So New Year's, Valentine's, Easter, spring vacation, summer vacation, back to school, Halloween, Christmas offers. Let them write one generic article for each of these occasions. So that way, when the Christmas comes, they're not in panic, like, we don't have a content for that occasion, right? And you enter all that in the CMS and let them prepare for, a little more in advance. A list of topics. What does it mean? If you have a specific industry, so for instance, for a pharmacy shop website that we did a couple of years ago, they created about 20 comprehensive guides, and now they just rotate them, depending on the season. So for instance, pollen, what to do when you have, pollen allergy, or where it's freezing, or where it's like flu season. So they just rotate it based on what's happening in general, and based on feedback of their customers in the shop. Only 20 articles, right? 4 years. Crazy. 3 articles per category. If you want to be ultra cruel, if they don't enter 3 articles per category by deadline, the category goes out. So in a way, they can themselves test if they are able to produce content at that pace. So sometimes it makes sense just to reduce everything to news in general, not like news about this product or this product, etc., etc. So basically, while you're still designing and building a website, you kind of recalibrate their expectations about what it's like to manage content. When you have everything in the database and everything's beautiful, everything's accurate, factually, right, you can do a lot of stuff. So typography, of course. If you know the tone and voice, the length of the articles, the topic, everything, you can actually pick the right typeface and design spacing and everything that goes into typography. So for instance, instead of color coding categories on a portal, maybe you can kind of type code categories. Why not? If you want to have like black and white website, why not? You can use different typeface that corresponds to the category that the given category. Key facts. You can create graphs. That's always cool. You can create callouts. You can increase some interesting facts. So for instance, 20% of increase in sales over the years, or 99% uptime on our servers. So make these factual things bold so that the visitor can relate directly to something that's very objective. So if you write like, we are very committed to our customers, it's not the same as you say like, well, we respond to our customers on average, in 15 minutes, something like that, right? Something that's really a number that they can actually relate to instead of your marketing talk, right? You can design different layouts based on information densities. So for instance, sometimes you want to have like shorter sidebar or longer sidebar. Maybe you want to repurpose your sidebar to behave like a toolbar for the main content. Maybe you want to galleries obviously have different layout than articles, etc., etc. You can edit image variations and ratios. And when you start designing like generic designs, because the the screen is 4:3 or 16:9, but anyway, it's usually landscape, and all the photos are taken by default in landscape. If you design without images, you'll probably stick to that because that's your comfort zone and you're used to that and everybody does that, and you don't have, at the end of the day, you don't have a better idea. But once you have real content, maybe like, for instance, social network for fashion lovers, they will want to have like portraits photos because they take selfies all the time, so there's no need to have any other format. Maybe you want to have one by one, like the Instagram format, right? So you cannot anticipate, there's no way you can anticipate that before having any images. So this is very important. At Creative Nights, we usually design the homepage and the navigation last, not the first. So that's our approach and works for us. So once you have content, it makes sense to actually something that has more content and content that's regularly updated that goes to the left in the navigation. But sometimes, so for instance, development agency Zagreb that's dedicated to helping startups and technology innovators in the city of Zagreb. We actually reversed the internal structure of the company. So in company, they don't have anybody who is guiding entrepreneurs, right? Or somebody who is answering questions, what's the VAT? They have a lot of people who work in these departments. So action grants, support programs, development projects, right? They have like really, really great experts in that field, in those fields. But, what we realized is that this website is used by complete beginners. So people want to come there and see and say, like, I have a startup, I need money. This is the goal for that user. They don't care about the VAT or the company type or whatever. So what we did was just reverse the internal structure of the company and said, okay, so if you don't have somebody to answer the phone, let's put that first, right? Like, what do I do when I want to have a company? You don't need anybody on the phone for that. But you need people to actually help with some advanced stuff. So once the advanced user comes to the website for some specific information about support program or EU program or whatever, they can easily skip this because they know that they've been there and just go back to the end of the line for their specific content. Homepage hierarchy. Who doesn't have a problem with homepage hierarchy? You don't have a problem with that, right? But yeah, homepage hierarchy is basically the same turf wars like the main navigation. And what we usually do nowadays is just copy the sequence in the main navigation. So once you fix the priorities in the main navigation, it's very, very easy to just put it in a vertical order. And you can do that by creating, by removing any sidebar. Just use full width sections and put the content that's actually describing what's in the section, what's behind the link. And if you want to know about sections, there's containeries.org, super smart website by a super smart guy, Konstantin Weiss, works and lives in Zurich actually, works for the IA. He has the whole theory about stacking content and how you can mix and match and easily reshuffle priorities if you need to. Bonus material. For the client, expectations are set early on. If you give them something tangible right from the start, they see you as an ally, as somebody who actually helps them, bring the best in them. So they start respecting the creative process. They know that it's not easy because they actually have to go through it. When they have to answer your stupid questions in the FAQ, like why this, right there, they understand that not everybody knows what they know, they start understanding that they are the experts and their customers are not experts at all, right? That's why they need them. They understand that the accessibility, and by that I don't mean like area roles in HTML or contrast between the text and the background. I'm thinking about content accessibility. So content is accessible if it's understandable. If it's not understandable, it's inaccessible. So they start thinking about how to present the information. Will the people understand what they're saying? And that they start understanding that it's much more important than how it looks. Because you imposed your structure with your templates, you have really even website, everything's structured so the users can anticipate what's happening where. You have a textbook example of form that follows function because you had content. You discussed with your clients how should we present the content, will it be understandable to the user. And then if it's not understandable to the user, you use your design skills like highlighting, graphs, illustrations, callouts, interesting layouts, illustrations to actually bring that content up. Lastly, when you design with content that you can actually make it interesting. So when something's interesting to the user, they are willing to actually engage with the company, they trust the company, and then the company earns money. For instance, when we redesigned the main navigation for the Croatian Telecom, which is a local branch of Deutsche Telekom, we saw that people are interested in particular brands like Apple, Android, BlackBerry, but not HTC or whatever there was, but into the Windows operating system. So we kind of broke all the categories and just looked at what's interesting to the users and kind of put that all together. So you can reach some HTC or whatever else brand from the advanced filter navigation, but basically nobody uses that because there's no interest to that content. But you have to have it because that's a metadata for certain types of cell phones. So we have like 4G devices, Apple, Android, BlackBerry, Windows, tablets, standard cell phones. So you never use like cheap cell phones, right? You use standard cell phones. That's a standard, and whatever is not here goes into this category. And finally, as a UX designer, I really find this kind of feedback from our clients totally rewarding, because when you get to influence the whole culture of the company and their understanding and perception of their customers, then I think you actually earned your title as a UX designer. Once again, Marko Dugonjić on Twitter. Thank you for your attention. Okay, question for the book. Employees profiles template. What's the principle? Who? Your book. Any more questions? No more questions? Okay, if you want to go have a coffee, and you can just kick me in the nuts on the hallway if you're kind of disrupted with this new process. Yes? Somebody? NDA. Sorry. Yeah, I actually pulled everything that I could because, what we do with our clients is actually demand that we show our techniques on conferences and in blog posts and whatnot. But we are kind of, it's very limiting because you're never allowed, of course, to discover what they did, right? So most of the examples that I was allowed to talk today about was from this development agency in Zagreb, because they're very open to that and they let us, talk about that because they want to. They're basically non-profit. I mean, they're profit, but they don't earn any money from these services. So we're kind of allowed to talk about that. But you can go to our website and see the client list, and you'll figure it out.
All right, thank you very much. So please go to Marko over the break and maybe discuss this approach in more details. See you here at 3:30.